In this video, we're going to take a look at the result of using the function round. The first one we're going to look at is when we call round with a single argument 1.6. As you might expect, the result of this is 2. One thing to note here is that the 2 is an int, whereas the argument 1.6 is a float. I'm just going to briefly pull up the help for round so we can see why that is. If you take a look at what it says here, it says that this returns an int when called with one argument, otherwise the same type as the number. So anytime we call round with a single argument, like we did here, our result will be an int. If we call it with two arguments, the other way we can call it, then the type that is returned depends on the type of the first argument. Now let's try round with another number. If we call round with 3.14159 and 2 as the second argument, we get 3.14. Here we had two arguments. Our first one was a float, and so the result of calling round is a float. The other thing to notice about this one is that the precision of the rounding is to 2 decimal places, as is specified by our second argument. It says here that the number of digits, or n digits, the argument that states the precision, can be negative. So what happens when we call this with a negative? So let's try this number and the second argument of -2. If you see what happened here is we went 2 positions to the left of the decimal point to do our rounding. So we rounded off the 3/4 and are left with 1200. The other thing to note here is that the original number we wanted to round is a float, and so the result is a float as well. Now let's look at rounding the float 2.5. I'm calling this with a single argument, and so this time we expect that the result will be an int. It is an int, and it's the int 2. This might be a little surprising to you, because often when we round a half, we just round up. To show you one more thing related to this, if I now round 1.5, I get 2 as well. This was a decision made by the designers of Python. They decided whenever there was a 0.5, they would not round up, but instead they would round to the nearest even number. You can see that's what happened here when we tried to round both 2.5 and 1.5. In both of those cases, the nearest even number is 2.